W Corpus Christi St, Beeville, Texas 78102. That was agenda item number 1.
To understand carefully the pertinent points so that we all could understand, unified in making the best possible decision and to effectively carry them out. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under justice for all.
And now the Texas Pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one.
Way every time. Way every time. Agenda item 4 is not agenda item number 6. Agenda item number 6. Then you want to do it. Yourself for the absence of any individual one. I just would like to welcome everybody here today. Back again, come back frequently. We appreciate your presence. And so, I would like to identify. Yes, please stand up in the back.
Hi, how are you doing? My name is Melissa Sanchez, and I'm
Officer Sanchez.
catering and also Pettis Environmental Restoration.
Oh, thank y'all for being here this morning. Oh,
Galen only matters with adult protective services in the state.
thank y'all for being here this morning.
Good morning. My name is Frank Massey. I'm from the community. I'm here to make a little comment later on behalf of.
Thank you. Commissioner's Court. Marks. I don't remember. I think it's you, Commissioner Lenny.
Okay, we'll take it. It's a rough week this past week. In fact, if we could all take a moment of silence and remember Bruce Roman Guyona Sr. Thank you. Okay. I think Landon for the we went to the 4-H. Went to the 4-H pancake supper last 2 Mondays ago. That's a good turnout. Whatnot, things need to be done, and what certain spots are a little worse than others, and just kind of getting a look at all that. We had a meeting with Michael. They were hoping for 400, and turned out it was closer to 700. So, turned out it was closer to 700. So,
Got a call from 1,000 acres. So that's a good thing. Now, for our taxes, I'm not sure it's a good
Worth much less.
Worth much less, much less, much less. Anyway, so be aware if you get those cards, if you're not interested. Now, they told us early spring, now they're saying midsummer, because they're being held up, some kind of, where they're being made in China, or some kind of embargo or something, but they said they should be here this summer, so. The reason we're tentative, we want to get them installed, so they'll be appraised in January on the next tax season, because it's gonna bring in more tax dollars. So we're kinda anxious that they hurry up, get those rascals in and get them put up. And to reiterate what I've told the court previously, there've been 1 million solar panels up there. 1 million. For those of you that followed the election that just happened, the Pawnee School District had a bond issue for a new high school. And as you all know, Pawnee School's been there a long time. They only go through the 8th grade. It failed. It was about 2 to 1 against. And the reason it failed, and I've talked to several people, taxes. Going to increase the taxes. They said, we don't want anything to increase our taxes, so it did fail. Road and Bridge is working hard. They've been doing a lot of road work around the Pawnee area. We had some roads in real bad shape. They've got them in good shape now. They're fixing to move closer to Beeville. And they're looking at Bronco Lane, Shady Lane, Lenny Lane. All those lanes over there are prepped and ready to go. And hopefully the next couple of weeks we'll see some activity and we'll get those things seal coated and new rock on. I think I'll end my talk there and pass it to my left.
It's been busy on the phone for the last 2 weeks. Still moving forward with the courthouse generator. Mr. Mercer did make the call finally and get into AEP, so he's passed on the next step. So that's going forward. I've been on the phone with Bill Harris. He's our consultant for the sheriff's office, and he advised me that they're 95% complete on the work on the sheriff's office and jail, and that they're going to be doing a balance test for the area intake and outgoing out there. So this week, and we should get a final on that.
This is for the HVAC solution.
HVAC solutions deal. We're almost there. The Blanconia Fire Department is still without a fire department. They have some paperwork to still fill out. This is from Hurricane Harvey, that far back, and we're still dealing with FEMA on that. And
and experience and how government really works at a different level and how it works at a lower level as well. So great
trip for me. Second, I had an opportunity to meet the Chief of Staff of J.M. Lozano. Got to meet him, meet some of the staff there. J.M. wasn't available because he was on the House floor at the time that I was there. It was a full day. The committee session didn't start till like 5:30, 6 o'clock, so it was a full day session when those guys were there. But great, the doors were open for me to come in and visit, which I thought was great. On some fun stuff, I got an opportunity to witness on how roads are constructed from the ground up. So I had an opportunity to work with Ray, and he kind of gave me the detailed process on how to do a seal coat. So I got to witness it from beginning to the end. So it's pretty good, pretty enlightening for me. Something I never saw before. I understood it, I knew what took place, but once you see it, it takes it to a whole nother level. Participated in a Tino Water grant meeting reviewing of the new prices for the bid items, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. One of the big issues, I was able to sit alongside with Ray as we had an issue that came up with the AEP contractor down on Baker Road. Anyhow, it got a little contentious because they placed a culvert that was on homeowner's property, not by much, but it was still a little contentious. So thanks to Ray, he was able to get there. We quickly identified, yeah, the culvert was placed in the wrong position. The landowner pulled up all the survey stakes, so when the contractor got there, he couldn't see exactly where he needed to put the culvert. So it's amazing how something so small can turn out to something so big so quick. But anyhow, it got resolved. Ray, good job in facilitating that little contentious area. On the Corrigan subdivision, they're making progress. They already put the base dirt down for the roadway. The lots are actually being put up for sale. We made an informal inquiry as far as what the price might be. Those lots, which is a 5-acre plot with water on them, water well, are going to be running for $20,000 a 5-acre plot. So roughly $20,000 an acre. So it's going to be interesting to see how that further develops. But they're moving forward, they're cleaning the area up and moving quick. 5-acre plots.
That's $100,000.
$20,000
$100,000 for 5 acres, which equates to 20.
You've already put money down on it.
I did, yeah. It's going to be one of the up and coming gated subdivisions in Skidmore, Texas. Gated. Yeah. This weekend I got an opportunity to attend the, I'll call it a church fair, Harmika, which was done in China. Great event, a lot of good bands, a lot of good food, a lot of good turnout. So it's a great effort put on by all the people that put it on. There was a follow-up session that I met with the Steve Bachelor at the Skidmore ISD concerning Stop the Bleed program and getting tourniquets. I had an opportunity to meet with Judge Showalter, which he enlightened me. I didn't have an idea how big Crime Stoppers is and what they do, information they provide. So he gave me a good overview, and the tourniquets that they're trying to get is in process, so things are moving forward with that. So that's a positive event. So that's probably what happened in the past week.
That's a lot. Thank you, Commissioners, for all of your comments. I believe since the last Commissioners Court meeting, we attended a CCOG meeting, so true, down in Corpus. And it was pretty standard, not a lot. It's kind of business as usual for the region right now. And then we also had a D-area partnership meeting. There's still growth opportunities in the community. A lot are centered at the BDA, and the community is very fortunate to have a great team out there, both board members, staff, interim full-time as well. So we're in good hands, and a lot of opportunity, a lot of potential growth for the community is out there. But there's also a lot of community opportunity and growth throughout the county, not just inside the city of Beeville. If any of y'all are small business owners or know small business owners, know entities that are looking to expand or having any difficulties at all with dealing with, any administration within the county, I'd encourage you to please reach out to the area partnership. Their information should be available on the internet. I don't know what their telephone number is offhand, but Celia can help you. She's the executive assistant there. She can get you in touch with the right people, and we can continue doing everything that government can do and private entity, private resources to bring new industry, new economic development into our community. So thank you to everybody that has a hand in playing all of that. So wanted to talk long enough to give all the commissioners opportunity to round the wagon and come back. Commissioner DeWitt?
One more thing.
Sir.
Those of you that came into town yesterday to eat lunch at the diner or Sonic or somewhere, the electricity was out. My wife and I went, we drove up, man, we're gonna get a good parking place, there was nobody there. But the electricity was out, so Dairy Queen was still on, but everything north of that to the red light was out. So anytime there's a lot of, and think about what that's done to that restaurant though. Staff showed up, they started preparing food, they made salads, they did turkey, and then the electricity goes out and they can't do a thing. So it's a huge economic impact to those restaurants and to the staff, so but that was what happened. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I'd like to congratulate the Skidmore Time baseball team.
Yeah, that's right.
They had an incredible comeback last Friday. They played Fremont. They were down in the 7th inning, 7-1, and they come back and beat them 8-7. And then they beat them Saturday 17-1. So they're moving on to play Weimer this next week.
That's
This
awesome.
week, rather. So,
Very good.
yes.
Go Bobcats. Anything else? All right, moving on. Agenda item number 6, public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the Commissioners Court? And don't forget, when you address, when you address, before you say anything else, just again, say your name for the record and identify if you're with an organization, the organization that you're here with. And then please tell us what you'd like.
Okay. My name's Melissa Sanchez. I'm with Beeville Main Street and work for the city of Beeville. I wanted to talk a little bit about an event coming up on July 1st, which is a Saturday. It is our second annual 4th of July event. This year, instead of having it downtown, we're moving it to Veterans Memorial Park. Veterans Parade will start at 6. So go out and, support them. This year we were fortunate to get a sponsorship so that we can feed all veterans for free, either before or after the parade. So if you know a veteran, send them our way and no questions asked, they get free food. So we're also having a kids and pet parade. That'll be one parade and it'll start right before the Veterans Parade. So we're gonna map it's not too long, but if you have kids, grandkids, pets, you can bring them along for that too. We did book fireworks this year, so we are gonna have a fireworks show. Time to be determined depending on how many bands we book as well, because that's still in the works for live music entertainment. We will have a kids zone. We will have vendors out and food trucks, and also a possible golf, frisbee, cornhole tournament, softball tournament, and alumni CDC game. I talked to Dr. Hodder tomorrow, so we'll see if we can get that going as well. So we're looking to have an all-day thing out there. Like I said, parade at 6. So I welcome y'all out to either participate or join. And if you know anybody volunteering that needs volunteer hours, send them my way as well. Thank you.
Ms. Sanchez, if somebody wanted to know more about ways that they might be able to participate in this event, should they reach out to you directly? And what's your telephone number? Main Street's telephone number?
361-358-4641, extension 242.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds like it's going to be a great event. Is there anybody else who'd like to make public comment? Yes, ma'am. Come on down.
Go ahead. I'm half all day, go ahead.
Good morning. Hi,
Morning.
everybody. My name is also Melissa Sanchez. I'm a resident and local business owner and a member of the Volunteer Fire Department and Pettis Toledo Volunteer Fire Department in North Lee County. The Chameleon, one of our family businesses, The Chameleon, is hosting and coordinating an event, Pettis' first annual Star Stripes and Sizzle. This barbecue cook-off event will help raise money for our Pettis Toledo Fire Department. This will be a state championship barbecue cook-off sanctioned by CBA Champion Barbecue Alliance. An event of this magnitude has never taken place in Pettis or North Lee County, to my understanding. The event will take place at Chameleon Park, a newly purchased property by my husband and myself. This is a stepping stone towards something, the larger goal of Pettis, a stepping stone towards a larger goal of Pettis environmental restoration. A newly established nonprofit with the aim of restoring and beautifying Pettis and North Lee County. The organization aims to improve the quality of life by providing cleaner living, proper drainage, maintenance of properties, creating parks and/or spaces for physical activity, and helping handicapped, disabled, and those with health conditions to maintain their properties. The Chameleon is seeking sponsorship, volunteers, judges, and cook-off participants to have their chance to compete with some of the best, including reigning world barbecue champion Kevin Hernandez. To kick off this new wind, we invite you out to help support our local Pettis Toledo Fire Department with our first annual Star Stripes and Sizzle State Championship cook-off. And I do have some judging commitment forms. I was told that only 3 of y'all could go.
Well,
if you wanted to help judge, if not,
as long as, well,
yeah,
I think we could probably be.
yeah.
As long as we don't get real close together.
You can't have secret meetings. No secret meetings.
That is an
And I do
interesting
have some
application
judging
of open
forms
meetings
if you're
act. That is funny.
Would you like these on the table?
Yes, please, if you'd leave them for us, Ms. Sanchez. Thank you,
I
and
think
that
it's
sounds
a Bible.
exciting as well. What's that?
I think y'all are gonna buy them.
Free testers. Here's
Well, we
the
know
3.
one's already lined up, so Commissioner
Probably
DeWitt is,
2,
You got me.
maybe 3. You can go, right? Or is you considered a quorum?
that's it over here. Have you filled these out? Good.
And if you could just take a picture of it to have for your records, and I need that turned back over to me, so I can reach out and make sure that we have a full commitment of judging, so we're not pulling last minute.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sanchez, and best of luck to you and your husband in this new venture. Sounds like it's going to be great. Is there anybody else? Mr. Massey, come on down, sir.
Good morning, I'm Frank Massey. I'm here to represent the community of Mineral in North Lee County. And I wanted to give you guys an update on the proceedings with our post office. Give you a little history. Several months ago, I guess in about December, our postmistress announced that she planned to retire. She told her supervisor at the post department, and the first thing they said, okay, well, we'll be closing that post office. Well, that word got out in the community. Everybody was up in arms and really upset. And I chose to lead an effort to turn that decision around. The first person I believe I talked to was Commissioner DeWitt. Explained the feelings of the community. He knows this out in Mineral and realizes that the post department is a needed facility. I mean, it's a way of life for our older folks. So with that, we came back to you guys, to this court, and you guys graciously penned a resolution and passed that resolution. That was the first effort to show the postal department just how serious of an issue this was and how we all felt about it. So that got our foot in the door. Secondly, I have to commend our District 27 Congressman Michael Cloud and his staff, because he came to our aid and he sent his chief of staff, James Baker, to our aid, and we formulated a meeting and got all the facts. And from behind the scenes, the Congressman Michael Cloud was able to get their attention. I believe that in our case, the squeaky wheel got the grease, and that we became a thorn in their side. they wanted us to go away. The end result was, a week ago today, they began training a replacement postmistress for us. So my purpose to be here today was to catch you up on what has transpired, and our people in Mineral will answer off to you guys, because you led the way, you passed that resolution. You believed in us. We're just an example of that. When community and government work together, we can get great things done. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Massey. Is there anybody else who'd like to address Commissioners Court this morning? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 7. The following items are of an administrative nature. Commissioners Court has been furnished documentation on each item, and all such items may be acted upon by one vote without being discussed separately unless requested by a commissioner or county judge. I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes without exception. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on, discuss and consider action on the following items. Agenda item number 8. Steve Cheney with the Tynan Water District thanks the B County Commissioners Court for the hydrocyclones and funds that they received from B County's ARP program funding. Mr. Cheney?
Yes, sir.
How are you, sir?
Just lovely. Thank you, Joe.
Come on down to the podium. I just introduced you, so the record is clear that you are Steve Cheney.
Most of our, sometimes I wonder who I am. Most of our community down there really doesn't know what the hell y'all do. 95% of the folks don't have a clue how y'all put things together. If you can get 5 grown hogs at the trough to agree on something, that's a miracle in itself. But then when those same gentlemen take it on up the ladder a little further and are able to help a community that really can't help itself, our hats off to y'all. We salute you. What's happening in our little community down there, people are starting to champion y'all. We're starting to see things get done. It's not that things weren't getting done. We were just, I think, low on the telephone pole for a while. And thanks to Commissioner Olivares and to his predecessor and you guys working together, our streets don't flood right now. Yeah, we've got lights that are in the process of being repaired. We've been able to deliver drinkable water that's not destroying people's washing machines and dishwashers. So, anyway, just thank y'all. You know, I hope y'all continue to have this kind of fellowship amongst yourselves and putting aside things. I've been a part of a lot of things, and it just, the wheels move excruciatingly slow. I think the last time I was here was 8 months ago. My hat's off to you. It didn't take 18 years this time. It only took 8 months. But I know that's out of your hands. Anyway, just thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for the job.
Thank you, Mr. Cheney. Thank you for all your efforts on that. Really appreciate that, sir. Moving on, agenda item number 9, approved proclamation from the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services proclaiming the month of May 2023 as Elder Abuse Prevention Month.
Move to approve. Second, some comments and corrections.
I have a motion and a second. Commissioner DeWitt, you have the floor, sir.
Yes, sir. Looking at the proclamation, I think we ought to take the official seal of Beeville off of it and put our names by who the commissioners and the judge are, and then I think it'll look a lot better.
We'll take care of that. We'll that's an amended motion.
It's amended motion.
Amended second.
Amended second.
Not a problem at all. No objection.
No objections.
Make it look a little straighter. We'll put it on the fancy paper too for you. Get all this for us. Oh, yeah. Take care of it this morning before the commissioners scatter to the corners of the county. Any further discussion? I think it's great that you brought this to our attention, and I think it's an important issue that we need to be mindful of, not to get up on a soapbox and talk about it for too long. But I will say that I've been involved in several proceedings in my role as a lawyer over the course of the last 13 years in this community and in community communities next to us that deal with elder abuse, and it comes in all forms, shapes, and sizes, and it's not just necessarily physical abuse, it's also financial abuse, it's abandonment, it's isolation, it's done with malintent, and oftentimes it's done by those who you would think would be closest to the individual, the aged individual. Advantage of others of us among us when we are in our weakened state. So thank you for bringing this to our attention. Please be vigilant. And that's all I've got. I'm talking myself up. Anybody else?
Great.
All right. No further discussion. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes without exception. Thank you, gentlemen. Agenda item number 10, approved proclamation from the Coastal Plains Community Center proclaiming the month of May 2023 as Children's Mental Health Acceptance Month. I have a motion and a second. We also have, yes, ma'am?
My name is Christy Rowlett. I'm from Coastal Plains.
Thank you. Do you have anything you'd like to present to us this morning? You don't have to. No pressure.
Just a little. Again, my name is Christy Rowlett. I'm here representing Coastal Plains Community Center. May is Children's Mental Health Awareness Month. We'll be having a little party for kids throughout the community at a time to be determined. Children's mental health is very important. We're hoping to help kids with mental illness develop into healthy adults. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rowlett. Thank you to Coastal Plains Community Center for all of their efforts on behalf of the youth in our community. And this is one of those things that is insidious as well, and it can be very damaging, but it also reveals the best and the brightest of us and sweetest. It shows us how unconditional love and support of those that may not be as fortunate as we are can improve not only their lives, but the lives of everybody around them and our own as well. So thank you for bringing this to our attention. Commissioner, would you have the floor, sir?
Yes, sir, if you would, there's a couple of typos, if you can put this on pink paper.
Absolutely. We'll do the same thing we did last time. We'll correct that.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Thank you, Denise.
Commissioner Sadias.
And was this your motion?
No, sir.
No,
Your
over
motion. You amended to
With the correction.
with the correct directions. Did you have the second?
No, then my second.
No, man, I'm just messing it all up.
That's
Right?
all right.
You got it though, right?
It's Monday, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. That's right. Every day for me is Monday. All right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes without exception. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on, agenda item number 11, approve Main Street's request for temporary road closure of Farm to Market Road 673 from 300 North Minnesota Street to 900 North Minnesota Street to the intersection of West Walton and North Minnesota Streets from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. for the 4th of July Veterans Parade event on Saturday, July 1st, 2023 at the Veterans Memorial Park to control traffic and for the safety of parade participants while entering the park at Jose Ramos Lane. I'm going to pass on this agenda item. I may come up at a future agenda item, but I'm not going to table it. We're just going to pass on it for now. Thank you so much for your presence here this morning, Ms. Sanchez. And remember, all the details were in the agenda item. So you spend all day up in Pettis, and then spend a couple hours in Beeville, and then you go right back up to Pettis to catch the final, I guess.
Ours will
bands.
end early.
Oh, yours will end early?
Ours
Okay,
ends
so.
early. The
So no
judging will
conflict
end
at all.
early.
So we expect
No, it's
everybody
not.
to be in Pettis and then everybody to relocate
Yes.
to Veterans Memorial Park. Awesome. What a wonderful day. Okay, moving on. Agenda item number 12. Approve request from Serenity Counseling Services to use courthouse grounds for their second annual Chalking Up for Mental Health event on Saturday, October 14th, 2023 from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
I'm here.
Hey, how are you? Come on up.
Hey, I'm Christina Cavazos, and I am here with Serenity Counseling Services.
Good morning, everyone. You know what, it's better if we just pass it down. So I am actually here to talk about two things that are going on here in Beeville. The city of Beeville reached out to us, so did the Chamber of Commerce, Beeville Main Street, and Beeville ISD. They reached out to us because, of course, May is for Mental Health Awareness Month. Serenity was all for it, so we decided to go ahead and do a kickoff event wherever you are on May 22nd. Either if you're here at the courthouse, we ask that you just stop what you're doing and you chalk for mental health. You can write good, inspirational things, draw something that means something to you or a family member that has gone through mental health. The theme of the kickoff event is Be Happy, as you can see on the first page. So this is the kickoff event, and for residents who are not able to purchase chalk, there's 3 different locations that they can stop, and we'll be able to provide chalk for them. For Beeville ISD, for all the different schools, we're also getting Skidmore involved, Pettis, and Pawnee. We've already reached out to them as well. So when they're in school, this is going to be happening on Monday. So when they're in school, they're going to be using their driveway at school to be chalking it for mental health. Mental health is a big issue here in our community, and working with Serenity Counseling Service, we've been able to partner with so many great people, and we've had so many people support us as well, getting the word out there and helping. So that is one thing that will be happening this month. We are asking for permission for October 14th for the Chalking for Mental Health second annual to use y'all's grounds. If you go to the last page here, it shows the grounds that we would be using, also what roads we will be closing as well. This here provides funding for our community for counseling services here in Beeville County. So 100% of the earnings will go towards the mental health ministry that can provide our people with counseling services. Instead of paying full prices, they will get a discounted rate that will help them.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cavazos. I'll open the floor for any questions this time. I have one. I noticed on your plan on the last page, you show a stage being in front of the courthouse. Is that something that's going to be constructed, or okay?
Yes, sir. We did that last year. Actually, we just had a trailer come out, and then we decorated it on the outside, so you can tell them it's a trailer.
Okay. And are y'all requesting as part of your agenda item? Will y'all be needing access to electricity?
Yes, sir. As far as using inside the courthouse, we do not need any usage at all. We're going to be having porta potties outside, but we do need electricity and water.
Have you, and I know last year this came up really kind of at the last minute. I did want to say for those of you in the audience, and I think Commissioner Lenny, that's why I looked over at Commissioner Lenny initially. I know that this last year's event was a really great event, right? Is there anything you'd like to share about?
It was a great turnout. It was a lot of people showed up. A lot of good chalking on the road, and before it was all said and done, we were already excited about doing it again next year.
That's great. You've met with or spoken with last year, leading up to today's presentation with Johnny Zagiddy, our maintenance supervisor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. If you just make sure that you continue to keep them in the loop with respect to all of your plans to make sure that the county is going to be copacetic with what it is that your intentions are as far as use of the grounds. We do need to try to make sure that we maintain the integrity of what we have right now. But I'm looking forward to this event again as well, and thank you for undertaking to put it on. If anybody would want to be interested in assisting, is there contact information that they would reach out to, or is there no assistance necessary, or a new vendor?
Yes, we are looking for volunteers. If they're able to reach me at Serenity Counseling Services. But we would love to see y'all chalk it up on May 22nd as well. Here at the courthouse grounds, if y'all are able to do that.
I'm so sorry.
If you'll put that phone number out.
Oh,
This
sorry.
is being recorded, so.
Oh, so sorry, 361-350-8088.
Okay. I'm confused, and I'm sorry. Yeah, let's clarify. You're here today to talk about May.
Yes,
This-
May, but I just didn't want the confusion for the 22nd and also for the October event. I'm here for the October event, but I didn't want the confusion to go into the kickoff event as well.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the kickoff event?
Oh, yes. So the kickoff event is for everyone here. If you're a business owner, if you are a commissioner, and you happen to be here on May 22nd, we ask that you just stop what you're doing and you chalk it up for mental health awareness. And we will have a, if you go to our Facebook page, we have certain areas. We're also trying to close down Bowie Street as well. So for residents who don't have a pavement, they're able to go there with Hattie's and Hazel's where that pavement is at, and they're able to chalk for a loved one or themselves who have gone through mental health, and they're able to do that for the kickoff event for the October event.
Excellent.
Yes.
So on May 22nd, kickoff event, wherever you are, stop what you're doing, go outside, chalk on the ground.
Exactly.
Or go right in front of Hattie and Hazel's, hopefully chalk on the ground there.
Yes.
Then in October, on October 14, 2023, will be the big courthouse chalking for mental health event, right?
That we'll be having here.
That's
Hopefully,
exciting.
yes.
The street.
Yeah, all on three sides of the courthouse. Okay, excellent. We do, yeah, now that we've heard it.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the use of courthouse grounds for the second annual Chalking Up for Mental Health event on Saturday, October 14th from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes without exception. Thank you again, Ms. Cavasos, for your presentation this morning. Moving on, agenda item number 13, Beeville Development Authorities, BDA, an introduction of Interim Executive Director Frank Dominguez. Commissioner Fidias, I know you're one of our representatives on BDA.
Yes,
I'm sure you're prepared. You've been reviewing Mr. Dominguez's CV, and you'd like to give him a brief introduction, tell us a background, starting with elementary school.
All the way back. Let's just go back a little bit. He was our former mayor, and he was on the board, served on our board before, and he came back to us and has been a great asset since he came on, since Mr. Arizola took off and left. He went to a different job. So Mr. Dominguez took over, and we're moving forward. We have a lot going on out there, so he's going to give us a little update on that so y'all can catch up on what's going on out there, and maybe, I don't know, convince him to give us a little tour here in another month or so and take the court out there and we'll see what's all that happens.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Frank Dominguez, our interim director.
Judge and Commissioner, thank you for the opportunity. One thing you left off my resume, I'm also on RN, so it's Nurses Week, so it's a near and dear to my heart. My wife and I are both RN, so happy Nurses Week too. It seems to be healthcare and mental health heavy today, so I want to throw that out there. But yes, when this opportunity was presented to me, certainly came by surprise. Mr. Arizola, we certainly thank him for his contributions and commitment over the years. But it was an opportunity I felt like I could give back and also help the VA out there as I do interim work as a career. So this kind of in healthcare, but this kind of transition to a different area. But thank them for the opportunity. We have a lot of, as you mentioned, projects going on. We have the NEO building going up. The side panels are going up. They have the ceiling panels up. AEP dropped a 2,500 transformer last week. Worked with Mr. Gadetto getting the permit, so thank you, Mr. Gadetto, for that. So now they're going to start tying in the electrical into that. It's a little over 17,000 square foot facility. If you're not aware of that going on, we trenched out our crew trenched out the AEP line and the conduit. So the next step now we are waiting for the city of Beeville to tie in the wastewater to it, and we're on track for June 30th completion date. The crane is also on schedule to be delivered out there as well, so we're moving forward with them. We toured the Greg and Mr. Childers, who's going to be the plant manager, and his wife. I know the BAP was involved, and a lot of community folks showing them homes, trying to find them a school. So everyone's very helpful for them getting them out here. So they're going to bring him in with the Neo knowledge, and then they're going to be hiring local folks to run the plant, help with workers. So there's going to be some opportunities. I think initially anywhere from 8 to 12 jobs is a rough estimate that they gave me. So they'll be looking at that. So we're right on track there. We also have Triga out there. They now are getting their GISR.
When you explain like Neo and up, tell the audience what that is.
Oh, so Neo Industries, my bad. Neo Industries does the steel plating out for Steel Dynamics. They're one of the big suppliers out there. Not only Steel Dynamics, but all over the country and the world, I'm assuming by now. So they chose us due in a closer proximity to shipping and trucking to City. So they're hoping that's going to reduce the transportation costs for Steel Dynamics and make it more attractive for them also to sell more product for them. So it's very good opportunity for them. And of course we still have Triga. Their equipment's coming in. I met with Mr. Muhammad last week. He brought Derek, who is managing the local plant here for them. They are looking at hiring up to 15 people. They're shooting for July 15th to start the HDPE pipe production. So they are moving forward. They also had the supply issues from what he told me, getting equipment and things like that in place.
And Triga is
a NAFCO subsidiary from Dubai. That's you probably heard of NAFCO and Triga out there. They took over 2 hangars and a paint booth and warehouse. So they are doing ambulances, fire suppression equipment, and now also HDPE pipe, which was their initial phase 1, but they had to kind of switch things around with the supply chain issues. But they're hoping to get that done by July 15th, is what I'm being told. So there'll be some opportunities there for employment. And we also had our racing event this past weekend, the national SCCA. They do a track, single car track, and that was this past weekend. And
I want to,
yes, sir.
Mr. Weeks, I want to mention a big thank you to BEIC, because that crane that he mentioned was a $300,000 contribution. So they were very instrumental in contributing to get Neo off the ground out there. So a big shout out to BEIC and a thank you.
And if you're not familiar with that, that's the Beeville Economic Incorporation. They help businesses, so not only can help them, but also local businesses with capital improvements and things like that that's needed. So yes, thank you. They were very instrumental in us getting that agreement with Neo Industries out here.
Yes.
So like I said, this is a brand new building, Neo Industries. It's on the tarmac, and it's a brand new building that VDA owns and will be leasing back to Neo Industries.
We did a great ground.
Initially,
Last fall.
We were out there breaking ground on last fall, but because of the steel, trying to get the steel here, they didn't actually break ground until a couple of months ago. And since then, they have been going.
yes.
And it's going to be completed
They're telling us by June 30th.
June 30th. Awesome.
So they've gone, we're working with Adaptive Industrial Services as the engineering and all that. They've been very good partner with us in getting this constructed. But yeah, if you guys would like a tour, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to tour that part or any part of the 1,900 acres or so, roughly, give or take a few acres that BDA controls out there. And of course, we have the water wells that we have out there that supplies a portion of the city's water supply now, so to reduce the dependence on Lake Corpus Christi.
The Forest Service.
Okay.
We have our Forest Service that expanded another, 700 or 800 square feet?
Yes, Texas Forestry, they've expanded into some more offices. They're looking possibly expanding more in the future. So they are Texas out of the Texas A&M division. So they're instrumental at training and fire. You probably know a little bit more. I'm still learning more about them.
He's learning about Mr. Dominguez jumped into this seat, and I mean, things were going in high speed. So he has really been great on catching up and just keeping up, because I mean, he jumped at it when all these projects are going on at the same time with the city of Beeville, with NEO, the Forest Service, with Triga, with the pipe, the PPE pipe, or HDE, well,
High density polyethylene.
right. And I saw that equipment that came in, that they shipped in, that came in from Istanbul, Turkey, and they were unloading it. That stuff's incredible. That whole hangar is full of lines. It's a sight to see. So that'd be worth a tour out there. If you look at Mr. Dominguez.
So we have a crew of 5 out there. Myself, Mona, and assisting, and then 3 maintenance / grounds folks that maintain the 1,900 acres or so. So they definitely are work hard and keep their hands full.
Tell us where the EA is in the lift station project.
The lift station project has been awarded to ICE Engineering, and they are in the final stages.
Yes,
Okay.
they're working with Border Affairs and Humberto Garza in securing additional funding to help supplement the funding of it.
I think that contract is sitting in our attorney's office
Yes.
right now, getting finalized. Meredith
wonderful.
Thompson. So Meredith is our attorney out there, and she is finalizing the contract so we can move forward. But we've already got 2 sources of income, or 2 grants that we're looking at to fund that whole project. It's 1.6 million.
And so everybody in the audience, because it's been a while, and so I need to remember myself as well, utilizing some funds that we had available through American Rescue Plan, we were able to finance for the BDA the initial engineering in order for the BDA to go out for bid.
So that's that initial cost that the county picked up there. That's why we got so far ahead, because they had a shovel-ready engineered plan to move forward for these grants. And this is why we're 2-3 steps ahead of everybody else, because we've got these plans going. ARP helped out great, just like they did with timing and some of the other areas, you know. So that was a big deal that the court put together for them, and it's already got us a lot closer. As soon as our attorney gets through with these contract, we're ready to move forward and go out for our request for proposal.
Thank God for attorneys.
So that's going to be instrumental developing the 35 acres for future development.
Say that last part again.
That lift station is going to be instrumental in us being able to develop the front 35 acres for future growth and development, and then tie into the existing city infrastructure.
What else you got?
Pretty much it. Just, if you guys, like I said, if you'd like to get a tour or want to see what's going on out there, feel free to reach out to me. We'll be happy to.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, I feel very comfortable knowing that you're stepping in to assist with DDA right now, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of the entire Commissioners Board when I say that I'm glad that you're here, that you're willing to continue to serve the community in this role. Thank you for that. Best of luck to you. I'm sure it is drinking water through a fire hose, and it's not going to be all fun, but I feel pretty comfortable with it.
No, we're grateful that you hit the ground, and I mean, you got bombarded. We're gonna buy roller skates to get out there and just keep going back and forth.
It's not a bad idea.
Thank you for the confidence and Commissioner for your support.
Absolutely. Thank you, Frank, for your presentation this morning, sir.
Thanks, Frank.
Okay, moving on. Agenda item number 14, approved resolution authorizing the submission of grant application for the 2024 Indigent Defense Improvement Grant Program, including all other necessary documents to accept said grant and the designation of the B County Judge as the authorized official. This is my, thank you. I have a motion and a second. Thank you both. Yeah, let me try to head you off at the pass a little bit. It's fall on your sword time, and I am going to fall on my sword. This is something that apparently comes up every year. In prior years, we've had a different level of support from our local Indigent Defense Council. So what this entire agenda item is discussing is the fact that the state of Texas, through the Texas Indigent Defense Commission, hands out millions of dollars every year to entities across the state, to counties, local governments across the state to provide indigent defense. And indigent defense means that if an individual is arrested for a crime and is charged with a crime, that they cannot afford an attorney to represent them, then B County and any county actually in the United States, actually anybody that's accused of a crime is entitled to an attorney to represent them should they want an attorney, even if they can't afford one. And if they can't afford one, then it becomes the jurisdiction's obligation to pay for that legal counsel. It's one of those things where it's so ingrained in the American fabric of life that it seems pretty common. If you, I mean, we all, I'm sorry, I'm struggling here a little bit because I keep having Law and Order going off in my head, and I'm trying to stay away from more kitschy comments. But the long and short of it is, well over 10 years ago, this commissioner's court started the process of becoming the first multi-county indigent defense program in the state of Texas, along with Live Oak County and McMullen County, through an organization called Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. So Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid is a nonprofit. They've been our partner and our vendor for indigent defense in B County for over a decade. But times change, financial situations change, and they've been going through some revisions to the manner in which they conduct their operations, the level of support that they can or that they're able to provide, and so where they're usually watching a little bit more closely and providing a little bit more direct guidance and support. In this year, we didn't really have that, and there have been some other issues in my office that are. There's no excuse. It's just my fault. I failed to catch this early enough to bring it to the court fully prepared. I will say that I spoke with a gentleman, Edwin Colfax, who is our direct contact and the gentleman that's in charge of the grant program at the Texas Indigent Defense Commission. And he, while he was out of the office last week, which always happens when you wait till the last minute, the people that you need aren't there, right? And it's not his fault, it's mine, again. But he said, don't worry, B County is secure. We'll take care of getting all your paperwork straight when he gets back into the office today. So by the end of the day today, we'll have our grant submitted to TIDC. The request of the court is to approve the authorization. There's a sample authorization from in the packet of information that y'all received. The resolution in general provides authorization from B County that we intend to continue on with this TIDC program with TROA, and that we're going to request additional funding. The funding amount year over year overall for TRLA to provide this process, the cost is a little over, I think, $4 million. B County pays, and B County, Live Oak, and McMullen County share 30% of that cost. The state of Texas picks up 2/3 of that cost. We renew our contract with TRLA every year, and every year we also have to go through and seek funding support for it. So that's the process. And so that's why we don't have the simple resolution that we otherwise would have. It says this, so my apologies, but
Judge, on the motion, do you need a little latitude on whether some changes come or whatever?
I have them. Should the motion pass, you've given me enough latitude to get this moving forward and taken care of.
So correct me if I'm wrong, what we have in front of us, the paperwork is not exactly the way it's going to be.
Correct.
Okay. Judge, it's kind of like we trust you, so I'm stating myself.
Thank you. Yeah, like I said, this is my fault, and if I wasn't up against the wall,
that's right. Because when I see
would.
the signature page, it's got district judges on it. It doesn't have anything about the county.
Yeah, no. So it gets even more Byzantine. Not that government is ever Byzantine,
It's
Right.
always transparent, correct?
Yeah, and very simple to follow.
No problem.
Byzantine, maze-like. We have a local board, an oversight board that oversees the execution by TRLA of their obligations for indigent defense in our county, that manages our indigent defense plan, which is a document in every county in the state of Texas, and just make sure that we're providing the constitutional benefits that we're obligated to. And that's why you see the district judges. The district judges are members of that board. All the county judges in this group of 3 counties are on that board, as well as Mr. Colfax and the TRLA executive. Any other questions? I'm sorry, I feel like I've talked to you a lot. We're good. Okay, thank you. I appreciate y'all's consideration and flexibility in this regard. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes without exception. Thank you, gentlemen. Agenda item number 15, approved bid award for request for proposals, RFP number 22-23-008, Tynan Water and Wastewater Improvements for the Texas Community Development Block Grant, TX CDBG, Colonia Fund Construction Contract number CFC21-0478. I have a motion. Do I have a second? I don't know who seconded that. Did you get it? Okay. Commissioner Lenny. Any further discussion?
Yes, another huge thank you.
Thank
How
you,
about
sir.
them lawyers?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, and I think it's so appropriate that we're discussing mental health and judges all in the same.
I want you to come back more often. I don't like your presence.
Well, one last thing is, we're, you're commonly referred to as blood-sucking leeches.
Sure.
And,
Attorneys, not judges.
well, they're all lumped in the same.
Just lawyers.
And then our hogs at the trough, which I think are that's one big curved trough up there. So, but anyway, it's funny how you get labels. I see that it just jumped out at me, our colonial fund. Well, I can assure you we're not a colonial down there. We're a group and a fraternity of people that is one of the most beautiful mosaics you'll ever see. You see people coming together. We reach out to y'all responded the best way you know how, the only way you know how, and my hat's off to you for sitting in a seat that's got to be so damn frustrating that you can't help every group that comes in here. So it's obvious, I can't believe I'm fixing to say this, the brilliance of your minds to bring all this together.
Can I get you to sign something?
For the good of the community. So again, with my hat in my hand and the humbleness of our entire community down there, thank y'all so very much. I think about the elderly people down there. The volunteer fire department that was helping us deliver water to those who didn't have water. And, I guess my last request for today is, if I have Commissioner Oliveira's phone number, but the next time Miss Helen calls because there's sand in her washing machine, I would like to send her to one of you 4 blood-sucking leeches. And,
I nominate Commissioner Farias.
Ooh. I'll second that. That's the youngest guy.
Mr. Cheney, thank you again for your comments, and truly, and I think I do speak for the commissioners up here, the thanks really should be turned back to you and to the other members of Tynan for bringing this to our attention. At the end of the day, we can provide money and some resources, but if the community itself isn't, if there's not members of the community that are willing to stand up and do work for free, in the background without recognition for the work that they do, none of this would happen. And so Tynan is very lucky to have you and other members of the community that have been shepherding. We're here talking about the water and wastewater improvements, but mostly the water system, which has been a struggle for the community for a long time. And I really hope, and I know we all do, we really hope that with these improvements, that shortly, water won't be an issue in your community. But again, the things really should be back to you, Mr. Cheney.
No, it goes to y'all in the community. There's so many volunteers, no one individual. Chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and I assure you, I'm probably the middle of the weakest link that there is down there. I'm just ignorant enough to come stand in front of you and ridicule you to a point, and let's get him out of here.
Well, no, you do it so nicely. We could listen to you ridicule us all day.
But honestly, thank y'all again. We just, the elderly people, those are the ones that have our hearts. And, they have no choices. They can't go anywhere else. I was listening to your concern about the sons and the daughters, and it happens all the time. I try to steer clear of it. You seem to be a magnet for these things, but
Just the blood-sucking part.
I'm sorry.
It's just the blood-sucking part of me.
Well, anyway, thank y'all for what you do. And again, please, from a grateful community, guys, just thank y'all so very much.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chu.
Thank you, sir.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes without exception. Look forward to hearing the next update.
Thank you, sir. You will get one.
Excellent.
And I'm going to relieve you from my comments.
Okay. Have a wonderful day and a great
Thank
week.
y'all.
Moving on, agenda item number 16, approved declaration that road and bridge inventory disposal equipment is non-functional, unsalvageable, and will be auctioned off with CM auction. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes without exception. In the agenda packet, for those of you that are here that are watching online, there is a line item breakout of the pieces of equipment that are going to be going up for auction. Please get on the website or go down to CM Auctions when the auction occurs and bid that up to a very healthy price. And if you're lucky, maybe you'll win a great piece of equipment that's been lovingly maintained for a few years. No further discussion. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes without exception. Those proceeds do go into the general fund, right? Excellent. Moving on, agenda item number 17, approve request to place the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Office sign in front of the Community Affairs Building. Mr. Gulick is here this morning to make this presentation. Commissioners, the reason I put this on, Commissioners, but I'm going to let you speak, Landon. The reason I put this on the agenda is just we've had requests to place signage. I know at a different location here at the county courthouse, but because the sign that AgriLife wants to put up is not a little 12 by 6. It's not like a little political sign in a placard. It's a substantial installation. I thought it best that we all hear what Mr. Gulick plans to do and then make a decision on how we want to move forward as a board. So please,
Well, thanks, Judge. Landon Gulick from the B County AgriLife Extension Office. So Randy, Kathy, and I we purchased a new sign. We had it made. I don't know if y'all have been to Community Affairs office building, but it's kind of leaning up against the bathroom wall. But it's a 4x8 sign. It's the same size as the one that used to be there. But we're thinking about moving it. If you're facing the building, off to their left is a flower bed. And it's kind of like my office is right there, but that's kind of our side of the building. So we were thinking about putting it right in front of that wall in the flower bed. I've already spoke with John. We've got a work order. But we were thinking about just putting 2 4x4 posts in the ground, 8 foot apart, and then just putting the sign up on those posts just like it was, but it was on the opposite side of the building. I don't know if y'all remember that when it was up close to the sidewalk. So other than that, any questions?
I have a motion, do I have a second? A motion, multiple seconds. Landon for your presentation.
Thank you, guys.
Any further discussion?
You got John?
No.
John already knows.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I just pumped the brakes when I heard about it. It's like, well, let's just.
No, it's a double check. Yes, sir.
So if there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes without exception. Thank you, gentlemen. Agenda item number 18, approve request to hold the Be Better Health Fair on June 1st and 2nd, 2023 at the Community Affairs Building Extension Office located at 210 East Corpus Christi Street, starting at 8 a.m., going to 5 p.m. inside or outside, weather permitting. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Did you want to say anything about
Randy, I asked Randy, she's going to be doing that health fair. I know she's working with a hospital on that, as well as Roxanne Costas on that health fair. I know participants came to the extension office on Friday and they all signed up. So it's open to the rest of y'all if y'all want to sign up and participate and shed a few pounds. It's, you know,
what is this, the Be Better Health Fair?
Which Randy was here to talk about. It's kind of like they're doing the Biggest Loser. So it's a great way to encourage people to lose a little weight, get their blood sugar checked as well as their blood pressure, things like that, just to people be more conscious of their health and and challenge them to shed a few pounds and live kind of a healthier lifestyle. Is what Randy was telling me.
Okay, and now I'm going to start quizzing you about details that you may not know. Is this a competition?
I think so. I know Randy and Roxanne and the committee have put some cash prizes together and things like that. So.
And when does the competition starts on June 1st or 2nd, or
it starts on June 1st, I believe, and that's like the initial weigh-in, is what Randy was telling me, and then I don't have to ask her when the ending date is.
That sounds exciting.
So, yeah.
All right, thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any ideas about friendly non-monetary wagers? There's no further discussion. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes without exception. Thank you. Agenda item number 19, approve request to increase election workers' pay from $10 per hour for clerks and $12 per hour for judges to $12 per hour for clerks and $15 per hour for judges for the county-held elections to be uniform with pay in other elections. We have Ms. Warnix, our elections administrator, here this morning. Ms. Warnix, you have the floor.
Laura Warnix, Elections Administrator. Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to put this back on the agenda from previously. Currently, when we hold elections for the other entities in the county, like we did on Saturday, those workers on that receive that pay. The clerks receive $12 an hour, the judges receive $15 an hour because the other entities are paying their wages through my office. When it comes to the primary, those we get reimbursement from the primary for that, so we don't pay for them. So we're only talking about the general elections, such as the constitutional amendment that'll be in November, and then of course our big one every other year. It's just I'm losing workers because a lot of them will take off from work where they're making $12 an hour to come work for $10 an hour and stuff. So I have a little bit of problem finding clerks and judges and so forth at this time. So I would like for the commissioners to consider that to be a possibility.
We have one election that this would relate to coming up this November?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But no other?
It'll be a small election for November, the constitutional amendment election. So the main one it'll affect is in 2024 for the November general.
What's the total dollar of increase?
It just depends on the election. Every election we have different workers, different amounts, so it just depends on what we have.
How many tip hours typically?
Well, if it's on election day, the judges work 14-hour days, and you have to have two, and then you have to have two clerks, so.
You're only looking at minimal hours.
So, I mean, and the thing of it is, I use a lot of mine on the big elections, like I'll use judges not just on election day, if they're available, I use them as judges during the voting, so they can get a pretty hefty check at times, but it just depends on the election.
What's hefty?
$600. It depends on how many days they work during early voting. And I try to work on a big election like that. I try to work everybody that's going to be in a polling place during the early voting so they can kind of get refreshed, and if they have questions or they need procedure reinforcement, I can help with that.
If we were to approve this request, that's going to change the our upcoming budget cycle
That's why I
discussion
wanted
with
to go
respect to the line item. What is the line item on for this right now?
For the general, it's $179.
What budgetary amount do we currently have?
Well, we budgeted $7,000, and it looks like there was an increase to $12,000 because I believe
the judges were raised, is that correct?
No.
What was it raised?
What happened is when we, in 2020, when I got the grant, what we did, we paid them during COVID, we paid them those, but I paid all of that, including the entities parts in November through that grant. I had that $66,000 grant I got, and so the county didn't pay anything on those, that grant paid it all.
Okay.
And so, I mean, it was paid through that line, but that's where it went.
So it's $12,000.
Maybe that's why I thought because it went through that. But it's a $7,000 budget that's in there. And we currently pay the election clerks $10 and the judges $14.
Okay.
Sounds like we're not gonna exceed that, based on the numbers of hours.
Not this year, and that's the thing, like when the big election comes up, it becomes a,
Next year.
yeah.
Yeah, so during budget, that's time.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes without exception.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Warren, for bringing this to our attention. And be mindful of this when we're doing our initial
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
budget meetings.
We won't, actually, it won't even affect this budget.
Right.
Fiscal year 24, the one we go into in June. Because if you're talking about November election,
It'll be next year.
Is it for next year's budget? Or?
No, it won't,
Well, we
Fiscal
just
year
approved will be
24.
for this November, but
Which is
budget
the
hearing
next
will be
fiscal
for the
year.
next November of 24.
Well, our new budget starts October 1.
October.
So
October
if you're
1,
gonna be
it'll be
working,
the next
we'll have
one.
this in.
No, you won't.
Anyway.
yeah, I know, we go year by year on our budget.
Do you don't have any other elections for this?
Yes,
Fiscal year.
this fiscal year have November, constitutional amendment election.
Next
That's
fiscal
next.
year.
That's the next
That's
one,
next
but then
fiscal
this
year.
one, and then after that's the primary, unless we have a special election or something, none of it, so it'd be the November, which would be the next budget for this.
Okay. All right, moving on. Agenda item number 20. Eagle View aerial imagery presentation given by Deb Castaldo, Deputy Chief Appraiser, B County Appraisal District. Ms. Castaldo, you and your guests today have been incredibly patient. Thank you all for your patience, and we look forward to hearing this presentation. I would suggest maybe, Deb, if you just give the commissioners for a brief overview of why you're here and what the presentation is going to be for, just so we understand in context what we're looking at.
Good morning, y'all. Deb Castaldo, Deputy Chief Appraiser from the B County Appraisal District. I'm here with District Manager for Eagle View, Mr. Kevin Beers, to present to you aerial photography that would be a terrific tool for the CAD to assist with our appraisal process each year. There's a lot of benefits for other entities, all the taxing entities in B County. So I wanted to present to y'all so you could see what those are before I present this to my board. I want to just give you all a preview to see if you're supportive. It's an expenditure that I think would be a benefit to all of us.
And what would that planned expenditure be?
About $40,000 a year.
And that's not 40,000 for B County, that's 40,000 will be added to the overall budget.
To the
which
ECAD budget, correct. That would then be allocated to the taxing entities based on the tax levy. Okay, and he's got a really great presentation for y'all, so I don't want to take much time. I'm going to let him go ahead and get to it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all for having me. Give me one just a second here. Again.
I mean, you're fine unless you want to turn around and watch.
I'm not.
Well, now you can't see.
I'm all right.
I was about to say, I'm glad you know how to use that equipment. Where's our
Something fell on the
Where's our TV?
First try. How about that?
Never works out.
Never done. All right. Well, again, thank you all, Judge and Commissioners, for having me this morning, and thank you to Deb for inviting me. Kevin Beers, I'm the District Manager with Eagle View, based here in Texas. I live in the Austin area. we're good. So
Looks like a fair picture of Austin traffic on any given rush hour day.
could be. Yeah, so fortunately I work from home and I travel a lot, but I don't get stuck in Austin traffic very often, so it's a positive thing. But so yeah, what I thought I would do is give you a little bit of overview of who we are, what we do, and then I can actually jump in and show you some of the aerial imagery and some of the tools and analytical capabilities that we have. So with that, briefly about the company. So we were established back in 2000, so we've been around for over 20 years. I've been with the company 15 years. And then we merged with this other company called Eagle View, and that's where we acquired the Eagle View name over the years. But we've got a couple of different offices. Rochester, New York, if you're not familiar, is where all of our flight operations happen, all the imagery side of the business. There's some imaging giants, if you will, that all started in Rochester, New York. Kodak being the biggest of the three, but also Xerox and Bausch & Lomb, who you think of contact lenses, but they also make MRI machines, CAT scans, big imaging machines. So there's a brain trust, if you will, in the Rochester area when it comes to imaging science. But really what we're known for is what we call the intelligent aerial oblique image. And oblique is just a fancy word for an angled shot or kind of a bird's eye view. And you'll see what that is here when we dig in. We work with about half the counties in the U.S., about 3,300 counties. We currently are flying for about 1,600 of them. And then here, closer to home, we fly for about 80 counties every single year, at least in Texas alone. So what do we do, kind of in a nutshell? I won't read this verbatim, but I think when you think about certainly what y'all do and what various government offices deal with, there's that saying, the only thing that's constant is change. And what we provide is tools and technology to help you keep track of that change. Whether you're in an appraisal office, keeping track of new construction, new improvements, whether you're in any various county department that is trying to keep track of things that are changing. As I listen through the agenda and you approve resolutions for various projects, every one of those has applications for aerial, and I'll touch on some of those as we go through. But again, in a nutshell, what we provide is aerial imagery and related technology to help jurisdictions keep up with that change. So who do we work with? It's a lot. So I only cover Texas, so I don't worry about all the other states around it. It's quite a few. It's about 160 of the 254 counties. And you can see B counties not colored in there, right? But we've got many of your neighbors, and you can see statewide, it's quite a few. All right, so a little bit of an education on aerial imagery. This is what we refer to as an ortho image or orthogonal image. So this is that top-down view that probably is made most famous by Google, right? Anytime you go on Google Maps or Bing Maps, any of these mapping applications that all of us have on our smartphones these days, you typically can see some sort of image in there, and that's that top-down shot. In most cases, it's satellite imagery, it's freely available imagery, isn't necessarily as good, isn't as current, and so on. So what we provide is this ortho image, that top-down view. But when I look at this as a trained mapper, a GIS professional, I can ascertain a lot of different information from this image. But for those that aren't trained in mapping and utilizing GIS information, you're somewhat limited in what you can see. So for example, I see a roundabout with some vehicles. I see what looks like a building with a white roof on there, a sidewalk, and then I've got this thing in the middle. What is that? Right? Is that a dog park, some sort of recreational area? It's hard to tell. So really what the value of the oblique image, again, that angled shot, is you start to see things from a more human perspective, right? That bird's eye view. So I can see that's now a two-story building. That sidewalk actually has an awning over it. So when we can see things from where we're used to seeing things, right, from an angle, we can start to pull out additional details that aren't readily available from that top-down view. So we do provide that top-down view, but then we're also going to capture images of all four directions of every square inch of the county. Next question is typically, well, how do you do that? Well, we have a fleet of airplanes, about 130 of them currently. They're flying over and capturing all five of those directions at once. So simultaneously capturing that ortho image and then all four directions. And as that plane flies back and forth, I call it a flying monkey. It's just up there mowing the sky. And it captures image after image, and it covers the entirety of the area. So what you end up with in terms of the imagery offerings are very high resolution. So there are various resolutions or detail levels of the imagery, but we can get down to 1-inch resolution. And it's like golf, for those of you that golf, the lower the number, the better. So when you think of in terms of GSD, which is ground sample distance, or resolution of imagery, 1 inch represents a pixel on the ground. So if you think about taking a photo with any of our cell phones, it's a digital image, right? So it's made up of a whole bunch of little squares. If you were to zoom way in on those squares, each one of those squares represents a distance on the ground in terms of aerial imagery. So 1 inch, you can see anything that's larger than 1 inch. We also have 6 inch, for example, where anything that's 6 inches or larger, you can see in a 6-inch pixel, right? So lower the number, higher the detail, higher resolution. So it's kind of backwards. So again, we provide the oblique image, so those angled shots to give you that sort of 360-degree view. You can see it from all 4 directions. And then the ortho, right, that top-down shot, which again is imperative for mapping parcels, street center lines, any public works assets, manholes, fire hydrants, you name it. So here's one of the key aspects of what we provide. So again, when we think about that top-down imagery, there's a lot of applications, as I just mentioned, but when you start to think about the oblique imagery, it really kind of opens up a whole new world for a lot of different departments that maybe have never used aerial imagery in the past. So this is something that's really designed for anybody and everybody that wears a government hat, if you want to think of it that way. So I'll talk a little bit more about property appraisal specifically, and public safety. Those are kind of the biggest user groups typically, but it goes well beyond that. So emergency management, providing imagery that can be used for disaster planning, for disaster response, and I'll touch on that a bit more here as well. GIS I touched on, so again, if you're mapping any sort of assets that you have, if you're mapping parcels and so on. But it goes well beyond that. So public works is I touched on assets, whether it's culverts or whatever those features are that they have to maintain. Seeing that from that oblique perspective gives them an added level of detail that they wouldn't have from that top-down shot. Engineering office, and I won't go through all these in a lot of detail, but basically any office that would need to know something before they go out in the field. That's kind of the easiest way to think about it. So again, if you're in public works or public safety, where you would like to know something about something, whether it be a property, whether it be a fire hydrant, whether it be a manhole, being able to see that with those oblique views before you have to send a field crew out there, where they can do more from the desktop. Planning and zoning, code enforcement, right? If we're approving septic permits, or we're gonna look at the height of billboards. So height is something that's unique to an oblique image. I can actually measure the height of a utility pole, of a billboard, of the courthouse, you name it. Anything you can see, you can measure. Fire departments, I hear this time and time again. I had a battalion chief sit through a training class, and we showed him the height tool and measured a couple the height of windows on a building. And he came up after class and said, I had 4 guys out there with a ladder truck for 4 hours, creating a pre-plan, which is what they have to do when there's a new structure, so they know how to respond to an incident at that building. He said, I could have done that in 5 minutes with your software. Right? So a lot of different examples. 911, having that imagery, that oblique perspective in front of a call taker when a 911 call comes in, and the person that's in distress doesn't know where they are or can't explain where they are. They can explain, hey, I see a yellow building on the corner. Well, now that dispatcher can see a yellow building instead of just a gray roof, right? So seeing that from all different directions. Prosecutors, we've had the imagery, we will certify it, we will sign an affidavit indicating when that image was captured. That has been used in court cases to help illustrate a crime scene, things of that nature. Law enforcement, again, any public safety application, but if you're going to serve a warrant on a property, being able to see, is there a large doghouse in the backyard that we should be aware of? Is there a building tucked back in under the trees that you can't see from that top-down perspective? So again, being able to see any location, maybe during the daytime, right? You're going to go serve a warrant at nighttime. You can see that during the day and create that pre-plan to help keep your officers safe and so on. Again, a lot of different use cases here I'll just skim through a few of these here. So specifically to property appraisal, this is probably the largest user group that we have in the state of Texas. And I know that doesn't make a lot of taxpayers happy, but it's about fair and equity. I'll touch on that as we go. But one of the challenges that we hear a lot in terms of property appraisal, and this goes for other use cases as well, but particularly appraisal, times have changed, and whether it's, just culturally or, folks think differently than they used to, but, you can simply Google assessment or property appraisal, and you'll have all kinds of stories about angry taxpayers pulling guns, all kinds of crazy things. So what we've seen in terms of the sort of trend, if you will, is, appraisers are less inclined to send staff out in the field to try to get on those locked properties, right? You've got all kinds of situations where there's locked gates and they can't get on a property. But even, sending them out to properties that they can gain access to, there are safety issues with doing that. And we see time and time again where it's safer to do that from a desktop. And it's not a situation where you can replace boots on the ground in every scenario, but there are a lot of circumstances where you can't. You can use this type of technology in lieu of sending folks out in the field. And one of the ways that we do that, and this is really across a lot of different departments, but here's an example for property appraisal, is the ability to plug that imagery directly into their current workflow, right? So here's an example of an appraisal software where the imagery comes up as that base map layer. So we create an ortho mosaic, which takes all those top-down shots, and we create a mosaic. And I wish the gentleman was still here because he used the term mosaic earlier, talking about his community. In 15 years of doing this, I've never had anyone say the word mosaic before I did, so that was pretty neat. But we create that ortho mosaic as a base map, and you use that to create your parcel lines, again, your street center lines, mapping any of those features that you need to map. But then we bring in this oblique image where you can see every single property and rotate around, see it from all directions, measure your height, measure your two sides from an appraisal standpoint. And that's built right into the workflow that the appraisal staff is already used to. We also have a mobile application, and I've lumped this under appraisal, but this is probably more beneficial for public safety. Having this in the patrol cars in their hands when they're in the field, extremely powerful. It has the location tool. You'll see on the very top left corner, that little triangle. It uses the location services on your device. So if you're out in the field, you hit that button, it's going to pull up an image of exactly where you are out in the field. So kind of bring it full circle from an appraisal standpoint. Here's an example. This is Wood County, if y'all are familiar. This is Quitman, this is East Texas. But a pretty representative example of how this typically works in terms of an appraisal district has challenges with trying to see a large number of properties, limited number of staff. And when they utilize imagery and specifically what we call change finder, which is our ability to find changes over time. So we take one set of imagery, compare that to another, and identify where structures have changed from one year to the next. The first time that the Wood County Appraisal District utilized our imagery and change finder, they found $24 million in value, taxable value, that they didn't have on the roll. So at roughly a 2.5% tax rate, $273,000 of actual tax dollars. Not back to the appraisal district, obviously back to the tax man. But this is actually pretty representative. We see cases like this all across the state every single year. And those are dollars that, it's like the saying is the gift that keeps on giving, right? Once that's on the roll, it's there in perpetuity, right? So, and this goes back to the fair and equity, right? If everybody's paying their fair share, what should happen in theory is tax rates can go down because there's more value being picked up. Okay, shifting gears a little bit, public safety. So this is really about providing, we hear that term situational awareness. If you talk to law enforcement, that's a key term that they'll reference. Providing that context so that they know what they're getting into when they're responding to a call or serving a warrant or whatever the case is. So when you have that oblique perspective, that angle shot, again, being able to see things from how we're used to seeing them, right? We're not just seeing that gray roof or that white roof. We can see the color of the building. We can measure the height. We can see where the entrances, the exits are, the windows. We can see things that are tucked under the trees. It's all about providing that additional level of context so that they know what they're getting into. So here's an example where you've got a deck on the back of that house. There could be something under that deck that you wouldn't see if you're just looking from the top down. Very simple example there, but you get the idea that being able to see this from every direction, take those measurements. We can have this in the patrol cars out in the field or in the fire trucks, you name it. And here's another example of how that integrates into the workflow, right? So here's an example in 911 where that imagery, you see the oblique image there on the left, plugs directly in. This is what a dispatcher would see. Call comes in, gets plotted on a map, and also brings up that oblique image to help. Landmarking is the big term in 911, helping to landmark where that call is coming from. The last thing I'll touch on before I jump into the software quickly, included in every agreement, every contract that we do is what we call a disaster response program. Something significant happens, we come back and fly it at no charge. Obviously hurricanes would fall under that category. This was actually Hurricane Michael in Florida a couple years back. But we have flown every major hurricane going back since we started. This program actually started after 9/11 in New York City. We were the only private vendor to fly disaster imagery after 9/11, and then we have flown every event since then. There are some guidelines in terms of, it's got to be a Cat 2 or larger hurricane. We also fly every major tornado. This was in Oklahoma a few years ago. The whole idea being to provide, having the imagery after is certainly beneficial, but specifically when you can compare that to the imagery before, see what was there, what's there now. Obviously, from an appraisal standpoint, they have to do disaster reappraisals, but equally as important is search and rescue and disaster response. So, just an added benefit to what we do. Okay, so I'm going to switch into the software. Any questions at this point before I kind of show you some of the images?
How often are the images updated?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we would basically fly whenever you would like us to fly. So what we had proposed was a 3-year cycle. And the way that generally works is there is essentially the cost of the flight. So we would fly the entire county, provide all the software, the training, support, all of that is kind of bundled together. But we would take that and split it into thirds so that the payment would be over three equal budget years. But that's completely controlled by y'all, how frequently you'd like to fly. You can split it over 2 years or fly annually, completely up to you. Just to give you a sense, going back to that map that I showed, there's about 20-25 counties that we fly every single year. There's a good chunk of them that are on a 2-year cycle, and then the more rural counties are typically on a 3-year cycle. Yes, sir.
This $40,000 we're talking about, is that every year for 3 years, or is that one time?
Correct. That's it. That'd be for 3 years, so $40,000 per year over 3 years. And then at that point, you have the decision if you wanted to fly again or not. There's no obligation to fly again. I will say we have been referred to as drug dealers because once you do this, you tend not to stop doing it because you find benefits for every department across the county, the appraisal district. And by the way, this is something designed to be shared with every entity. That's not an exception. That's how it is. Every county that you saw there is being used by school districts, cities, obviously counties, 911 groups. This is intended to be shared with everybody across.
So the one time, the payment covers all of it?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And access, how easy it is to do.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to show, how easy it is to access. So this is web-based, right? So we hear that term cloud, which can be scary at times, but that just means it's sitting on one of our servers rather than on yours. And every user would simply have a login to this. So what I'm showing here is what's called our Connect Explorer application. So this is a standalone web-based viewer. You don't have to have any software installed. And this would be set up for every user. So each user would have a login. That same login would work on our mobile app. You saw a screenshot of the mobile app. And this is also the same technology that can be plugged into 911 software, appraisal software, public works software, if you use CityWorks or something like that. All of that allows the same imagery and tools to be plugged into a lot of different applications. I assume this looks familiar to you all. Usually I say that, and a lot of people don't know because they're not as close to Corpus as you all are. Well, so what this opens up first is an oblique image, right? That angled shot. So I'm going to zoom in on this just as an example to show you some of the detail. Now this is our 3-inch imagery. So this gives you a sense of the level of detail that you can see. But I'll kind of focus on the interface here a little bit. So you see up on the top left corner, because we're not always looking at a top-down image, we need to know which direction we're looking at, right? If you're always looking at a map, north is always up, typically. But in our case, this could be any direction. So we have a compass here to tell us which direction to look at. So I'm going to hover on this and it say view from the west. So this is now going to rotate us around. We're now viewing from the west, so looking east. Right? So there's our oblique image facing east. Right? If I wanted to see this from the other side, I can come up here and click on this little view. Now I'm going to view it from the east, now looking back to the west. Right, so extremely easy to use. I can click these little swipe tools. I call these the Nike switch tools, right? You can click those to rotate either way. You can zoom in and out just using the scroll button on your mouse. So extremely easy to use. And I won't touch on every single tool. There is a lot that this will do. But you'll see I can just pan from one area to the next. All the imagery seamlessly flows from one area to the next. But we also have that top-down view, that ortho image. So I click on this little button here. And there's that traditional top-down shot that we're probably more accustomed to seeing. So then from there, we can start to take some measurements. So typically, if I was going to measure an area of a building, I would do it from that top-down shot. So for example, I'm just going to click, and I'll do this very quickly here. Section sitting down here. And I double-click to finish that measurement. So there's our area in square feet. You can change the units. You can measure that in acres, hectares, whatever your units of preference are, right? But then we can switch back to that oblique perspective, that oblique view. And now we can start to do some really interesting measurements, right? So let's say I want to measure the height of this utility pole. So I'm going to grab my height tool. I'm going to click at the base of that pole. I'm going to drag that up, double click, 36 feet, right? And that could be anything. So that could be the side of a building. So I'm going to measure it from here up to here. Click too fast. Okay. All right, 32 feet. I can also measure the vertical area. So similar concept, but I'm going to measure the height, but then drag this across. And that's going to give me the area, square footage of the side of that structure. Right, now obviously this one's up on stilts, but you get the idea that, so that could be a billboard, that could be anything where you need to know what's the vertical surface area of that. Okay, so the other unique aspect of this is that we have built into it is Bing Maps. So Bing, in terms of, if you were to go to Bing Maps and type in an address, this uses the same, we call it a geocoder. You can type in any address or even landmarks and go to a specific location. So if we wanted to go to, let's see, we were talking about McMullen County, who is a customer. We're going to go to Tilden, lovely Tilden. Who's been to Tilden? Okay, go to Tilden. So I can just type in either an address, or in this case, I just did a city and state, and it takes me to that location. Those that don't know, the appraisal district is in this building here, just here. Right, so you can see how the searching works. The other aspect of this is we can incorporate bookmarks. So you can label things. I've got a bookmark here for just a pretty ordinary neighborhood, but what I wanted to show here is we can overlay any of your GIS information. Right, so in this case, I've got a parcel layer from the appraisal district that has account numbers. This could have owner name. It could have the address, the site's address. This could be unique ID numbers for manholes, fire hydrants, any layers, any GIS information that any department has can be overlaid, not just on the ortho, but also on the oblique image. One of the other aspects that's built in here is the ability to see any previous or historical imagery that we have. In this particular location, we have a whole bunch of previous imagery. We've been flying this area for quite a while. So here you can see, you can detect change over time. And I can also see this side by side. So I want to see what did this look like before and what does it look like now. This is going to load in the more recent image. So now we can see side by side over time, right? So that's something that, and again, I go back to jokingly to the drug dealer reference, but the idea is you build up that inventory of imagery over time so you can go back in history and see what it looked like in historical context and what it looks like now. Right? But then I can click on any one of these parcels. So I'm going to use my identify tool and just click on this particular parcel here, and it will give me information about that parcel. So we've got owner name. So this would be your data. So we don't maintain any of the mapping layers. We just provide the underlying imagery, the base map layer, and then the tools to analyze that. But any information that y'all have, neighborhood codes, again, this could be any of your different GIS layers that you have. And all of that capability is built in. So I'm going to turn off my dual pane here. But again, you saw I had a number of different bookmarks. So this is how you can share locations with different users. You can export images. So we go and we zoom in on property here. So we have different options to export, but the one I'll show is you can export this out to a PDF document. So if I was working with a colleague or a taxpayer or a constituent, and I just wanted to show them, hey, this is your property, you can export that to a PDF document. It has you'll see the date stamp on there when every image is captured. So every image has that date associated with it. You'll see that down here as well. And this is, again, going back to 2014. We'll go back to the more recent image. So again, I didn't run through all the tools, but just to give you a sense, I did touch on the distance, the area. There's also a location tool, and this just simply gives you a lat long or an XY coordinate. And this is really one of the most important aspects of the image is that every single pixel, we talked about those little pixels that make up every image, they're all geo-referenced, and that just means it knows where it is on the surface of the earth. So that's how we can coordinate with any other software. So if we were going to send an image to the appraisal software, they simply click on a location and it passes a coordinate to our software, it up comes an image. But this is also how you can relay information to public safety, right? If you were going to direct in a helicopter, a mercy flight or something like that, you give them a coordinate, and there's also a bearing tool where we can direct them by direction. So here we can grab our bearing tool and we can get angles and all kinds of stuff. So lots of different tools. We can also drop shapes and text and lines and annotate things, put information on there. So if we were going to mark up around the courthouse or when they're going to chalk on the sidewalks, we can put shapes on there to indicate here's where the tents are going to be, here's where the medical location is going to be, and so on. You can mark all that up, you can export it out, and so on. So I'm going to pause there. I know I've thrown a lot at you. Any questions?
Yeah, a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Go on, so go ahead. Okay. Access to the community, and it may be a Deb Castaldo question more than anything else. So if the appraisal district ends up acquiring this resource, are there interlocal agreements that have to be entered into between the various jurisdictions, departments in the county, and the appraisal district with respect to access to not only the data but the programs to like Connect Explore? And then the second component of the question is Connect Explore something that I could download on my iPhone today, and in McClellan County I could bump around and look throughout the entire county? Is a public resource for the community? Is this something that would be easily obtainable for them?
Yeah, no, great question. So this is a licensed product. So the imagery is licensed, the software is licensed. So much like, if the appraisal district had someone come in and say, hey, we would like your copy of Microsoft Word, they would not be able to share that, right? It's a licensed product. The imagery is licensed as well, which is sort of an interesting concept where it's data, right? It's content, but it is licensed. So the way that would work from a contracting standpoint is all the taxing entities are what we refer to as authorized sub-users. So in the contract, there wouldn't be any additional paperwork, any interlocal agreements required. An agreement, for example, with the appraisal district would allow any of their taxing entities full access to the imagery and software tools to training, the support, everything that's included. So they become direct customers via extension through our agreement with the appraisal district.
Are there restrictions on the level of usability or resources availability to
There's really not.
taxing?
There's really not. Yeah, so initially we would start out with a certain number of logins or users. And if you hit that limit, we're just going to increase it. So, it doesn't make any sense for us to limit it in any way. So we want everybody to use it. So there really are no restrictions on number of users in terms of government users. And that also extends to any contractors doing work for the appraisal district, for the county, for the cities. They in turn become sub-authorized users as well. And we typically would have them sign something that just says, hey, we acknowledge we're a sub-user and we can only use it for this specific project. But we certainly would allow them to use that for that purpose as well. And the second question, in terms of public access, you absolutely can display the imagery to the public, both the ortho mosaic that we talked about, which becomes a base map layer, and I can show you an example of that, but also the oblique imagery can be made available as well. The only limitation is we restrict the tools, so the measurements, the analytical tools, so the public would not be able to see, wouldn't have the ability to measure a height, for example. But the imagery can be viewed by the public, but we restrict the analytical capabilities to just the government users. Here's an example. This is for an appraisal district, Hunt County, up in Beeville, if you're familiar. And I'll show you that we have the imagery plugged in here. So right on their website, we have different years of imagery that we've flown. I'll turn on their latest image here. And again, this is public facing, so this is available to the public to zoom in. And what we do find in a lot of cases is having the imagery out there does save the appraisal district from getting some phone calls from landowners, from taxpayers, because they can see a lot of the information that they may normally come to the office to ask about. But then there is an ability, and they don't have it through this particular viewer, but where you can click on a button and see that oblique image as well. Again, just without the measurement capabilities.
My question was, say you had the fire department was doing some work on this software, measuring some buildings and whatnot, and then I came in to use it for a different purpose. When I open it up, do I see what the fire department was working on, or is it basically a blank canvas for me at that point?
It'd be blank. So each user has their own settings, if you will. So when you log in, you can see something completely different. There are ways to manage it so that all users see the same in terms of the layers. So for example, parcel layer, street layers, things like that. Those can be managed across the entire organization. But in terms of if a specific user adds, text and lines and features like that, that would only be within their login. There is an ability to share that with other users, but they would have to sort of deliberately do that. It wouldn't just automatically show up for everyone. Yes, sir.
To follow up with Commissioner Lenny's question, okay, I'm a fire department and I want login authority. Who do I contact, the appraisal district or you guys?
Either one.
Okay, so they would have the authority to grant the login.
They would. That's correct. Yeah, they are sort of the queen of the kingdom, if you will, where they would control their entire organization. And under their account, they can create sub-organizations for the county, the cities, the school district. But we absolutely would help them manage that. And we have training resources too that I'll touch on. This I think is pretty unique in terms of kind of the software industry. But right on the login page, there's a link to training videos. So there are live webinars. Again, any user, this wouldn't just be the appraisal district. This would be any user would have access to this, where they can register for kind of recurring webinars. There's already pre-recorded videos, product info, but then down here are some really neat ones. So these are just little 3 to 5 minute clips about every feature of our software. So how do I log in and navigate? How do I use the dual pane mode? How do I use the bookmark? So a new user could come to this page and probably in 30 minutes watch 4 or 5 of these videos and be up and running. So it's extremely easy to use. But again, we do offer full-blown training. We do on-site training where we will come down, our training team will come down and actually sit with a group in this room or wherever the training would be and run through all of this. But we have designed this to be kind of self-service, so users can come in here and access what they need.
So a 911 dispatcher gets a call and, hey, it's a 1521 was used.
They can. So 911 is there. So there are some challenges with 911 where some 911 centers are disconnected, meaning they're offline only. So in that case, we can put the imagery physically at that site. So it depends on what 911 software they use, whether or not we can plug the imagery into it using the web interface. And I'm not familiar with what Coastal Bend uses. I'm actually meeting with them tomorrow. But so Coastal Bend COG handles 911 for your region. We have the ability to plug the imagery into a lot of different 911 softwares. I don't happen to know which one they use yet. But if they use one of the vendors that we partner with, the imagery can be plugged in through the web interface.
Comment. One thing that I see positive for law enforcement and first responders, let's say there's a fugitive loose in North P County, and he's out in a ranch. And law enforcement says, how do I get there? It will show them every road, every
Absolutely.
gate, everything else, the houses and everything on that range.
Absolutely.
And now, this only shows up in daylight, right? It shows day.
Correct.
Okay. But they would be able to say, okay, we know this road, this road, this road, we can get there from these directions, coming from that way. Fire departments, first responders, and law enforcement, this is probably a valuable tool for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting, I touched a little bit on the case study for the appraisal district in Wood County and how much value they added to the tax roll and what the increase in tax levy was from that. So a lot of times the return on investment from a dollars and cents standpoint makes a lot of sense for the appraisal district. But I think more importantly, the return on investment in terms of public safety is how many lives were saved. And that's sort of a number that we don't always quantify very well. I can't say how many lives this has saved, but it's numerous. There's lots of examples where, and I could go on and on with stories, but we had a dispatcher at a conference came up and said, yeah, we just saved this guy last week. He was staying at a not so nice motel and was headed to a not so nice liquor store and decided to walk through a ravine of sorts and got stuck knee deep in some sort of I don't know if it's quicksand or what it was, but some sort of water thing. But it was down inside. It was recessed, and he had cell signal, but there was large cattails growing up all around it, so you couldn't even see this little pond area. So he was explaining where he was and said, I'm going from this motel to this liquor store. And the dispatcher was able to kind of trace where she assumed he was walking and found this little pond that they didn't even know it was there. And they were able to find him and rescue him. But lots of examples like that. Public safety is, I would think, is the biggest benefactor of this technology. And it's ironic because they're usually not the ones that purchase it directly.
So, great presentation, great information. And one of the things I see the entire value proposition back to the county is several things. One, when I think about the man hours that it would take to physically go out to every piece of property, measure, take pictures, compile the data, gather the information, all this data history. I don't know how many man hours it is, but I would assume it would be a bunch. And you take those man hours, you multiply by some sort of a dollar rate. My guess, just not knowing the details, is going to way surpass the dollar that you're proposing, just based on man hours. On the other part of that, Deb, some of the things that we're working with is a challenge on you're getting from a lot of the people in the community. What is my property value actually worth? What does it look like? And all those dimensions, because I know you're going to be getting a lot of protests coming up. This quickly you could log in and have that dialogue on a computer, face to face, and could resolve a lot of issues or misconception or knowledge, so to educate. But the bigger part is, the benefits from the HSC standpoint across the community, the dollars, the man hours that we would save if you have to physically go out, which I would think that the man hours that you're spending to make all the assessments, giving back to the taxpayer one way or the other. Right, somebody's got to pay for it. Is that correct? Yes.
Well,
No?
that I don't know. We're gonna learn a little bit more about that.
Okay.
Taxes as they relate to counties in the state of Texas, we have one big pie, right? And the amount that a pie would, in my world, the pie represents tax revenue. Right? Tax revenue. That's all I'm talking about. Dollars that come to your taxing jurisdictions. Tax revenue. that pie can grow year over year, only to a certain extent, 3.5% as set by the state legislature. That pie cannot grow astronomically. It cannot grow exponentially. It cannot exceed 3.5%. The pie stays relatively the same. The difference in what we pay in taxes year over year as an individual landowner is a component of our respective slice of the pie, how big that is, and the tax rate for each taxing jurisdiction. So getting truer valuations of everybody's slice of the pie doesn't create more taxes for your citizens. What it does is it more correctly apportions the tax burden on a track by track basis. So that's just the first thing, because and nobody else is doing it, so I'll play devil's advocate. I am very conflicted with this. I see all the benefit from the government services, but as an individual taxpayer in the county, I don't know that I want to give the appraisal district more resources to tax me. So I want y'all to know I am internally conflicted with this resource, because I don't want to make it necessarily easier, but when we think about it from the point of view of equity, and the fact that this doesn't create a windfall for your taxing jurisdictions, it merely protects the fairness on each individual taxpayer with respect to the slice of the pie, then I'm a lot more comfortable with it. Now I'm going to open the floor to questions. Yeah, real quick. So after Commissioner Olivares asks his questions, I'm going to open the floor to questions subject to this caveat. If you're interested in asking a question, you must be recognized by me, okay? So in order to do that, Ms. Warnix is going to ask the first question after Mr. Olivares is done, and I'll let you know. When you get, or after the commissioners ask their questions, then I'll let Ms. Warnix, unless these two want to too, right? Then I'll let Ms. Warnix ask her question. If anybody else has a question, please raise your hand and just wait for me to acknowledge you. And that way we won't descend into a peppering system for Mr. Beers or for Ms. Castaldo. So Commissioner Olivares, you have the floor again.
Just wanted to recognize your articulation for that explanation very well. Because you're right, it's a double-edged sword.
And it only relates to, it doesn't relate to our INS debt service in the state of Texas, floats with valuation, right? So I apologize, it's a big component. We carry our debt service, our INS debt service is it just the jail now? No. Yep. Okay. We have some equipment at Road Bridge, right? Right, so debt service in each county, your tax rate floats to cover that debt service for all of your taxing jurisdictions. So if a school district like Pawnee was successful in their bond to build their new school, that would be an INS debt service tax component. So that rate could increase more than 3.5%. So I apologize, but there's nothing simple about property tax in the state of Texas. Sorry.
No, great. That's all I wanted to acknowledge the additional information provided, because it could be wrong between myself too.
My question, you said that there was a $24 million increase in, was it because of discovery, because it's what the aerial photos found?
There are properties they couldn't get on. There's lock gates. So Quitman, which is Wood County, is in the piney woods, East Texas, so there's a lot of pine trees that don't drop their leaves as well. One of the unique aspects of oblique imagery is when you have pine trees or other hardwoods that don't drop their leaves, top down you can't always see anything, but because you've got multiple views, you can typically see that there's structures in there. So those are structures that they just didn't even know were there because they couldn't see them, couldn't get on the property. Thank you. You're welcome. The other thing I would add, and I'm by no means a property tax expert either, but been doing this long enough to understand. So the appraisal district is mandated by the comptroller's office to appraise properties at 100% market value. If they don't, they will fail what's called a property value study, as Deb can speak to, where then the school district suffered. And I won't go into a lot of details on that. So
we had that issue earlier this year with BISD.
So it really is, unfortunately, it is an option for appraisal districts to not pick up the value. So it's one thing to maybe not want to, but the state's going to make them find the value. So it's either you can use technology to do that, or you can hire more staff, is usually the trade-off.
And I'm still going to get to you, I promise. But you led me into a question I forgot to ask Ms. Castaldo with respect to this solution. Will the inclusion of this solution in your efforts with the D County Appraisal District, which is a misnomer, they're arm of the state of Texas, they don't answer to D County, will that adjust any of your other budgetary line items for the upcoming fiscal year?
I don't believe so.
So the contract, because you currently subcontract or delegate out the annual property valuation and
That is contracted with Pritchard
Pritchard Nabit.
And that contract does not expire until the end of next year, 2024.
2024.
So that all those appraisal fees will still be in our contract.
Prospectively, and Mr. Beers, you may be the one to answer this question, and I don't need to take. If in the future contract negotiations with Pritchard Nabit or others, or whatever it is that the appraisal district is looking to do and the existing contract rolls off, if this resource is a resource that that is available, does Pritchard Nabit think, or have you talked to them about this will reduce the amount of time and effort that their employees, their staff have to devote to D County, and thereby reduce the cost of their contract with us? Or is this really just going to be an additional adder to the Pritchard Nabit or any other subcontractor that the appraisal district use for valuations?
It is something we will look at when we renew their contract in 2024.
So it's just
But
that
we
you
have
don't know
not-
right now.
We have not spoke to Pritchard Nabit about it. Basically, we want to present to y'all. My board wants to make sure that we have support from y'all because it's allocated to you through our budget before we move forward with anything else.
And I don't know if we had mentioned that during a brief introduction, but I do want to say publicly and on the record that I greatly appreciate your board's willingness and approach and your focus and your appraiser's focus in bringing this to us on the front end. I think this makes for a much more productive discussion. So thank y'all for doing that to us. Mr. Beers, in your experience with other counties in the state of Texas, have you seen or do you know if your solution results in a reduction of cost for entities such as Pritchard Nabit?
I have heard a lot of scenarios where it does, both directly in terms of salaries, but also indirectly in terms of mileage and things of that nature. The interesting thing, and not specifically to Pritchard Nabit, but others, there are other appraisal companies that do similar work. It's a little bit of conflicting interests, right? Because they're in the business of boots on the ground appraising properties, and this is a technology that sort of goes in the other direction of doing more from the desktop. So it's a delicate balance. So they could certainly utilize the imagery as well to do what they're contracted to do. I don't know. I won't speak for what their opinion is of which method is better, but I would say there is a little bit of conflicting interests in terms of what they do versus what we provide, and we partner with them. So not to say, we work with a lot of them very closely, but if I was an appraisal consulting company tasked with sending appraisers out to appraise property, and there was a technology that reduced the amount of the need for that service, I'd be cautious.
I appreciate your feedback, Mr. Beers. Ms. Warnex, you have a question?
I do have a question. We utilize the 911 addressing from my office for the elections. We have a lot of new county roads and come in, so therefore we have new structures coming up. So would it be capable to, as soon as we get something on that, to add it without having to do a flyover?
Absolutely.
That was my question.
Yeah, absolutely.
An address so that they
for 5 of those years. And this technology that we're looking at today is not totally new to our appraisals. I've seen Pritchard Nabit people sit there with split screens looking at Google Earth. Google Earth is a taxpayer a free service. So they're doing a lot of things without having to leave the office using a cheaper service. I've been a customer of Beeville View. I purchased their services when I was in a roofing contracting business, and it sure saved putting people on a roof with a tape measure. It wasn't free and it wasn't cheap, but it was good. So as a taxpayer, I just wanted to throw that out.
Thank you, Mr. Messi. Yes, ma'am.
As a taxpayers that pay multiple entities of taxes and different properties, I don't think it's so much the cost of assessment, because the cost is what it is. There will be growth, obviously, when you add to your property. But my question is, because $40,000 really and truly is very affordable, what type of entities do you sell to other than government entities? Is this information being sold to companies outside of the U.S.? Is this something that, is that in writing? Is that in contracts that?
They certainly can be. Yeah.
Because I would consider it, I mean, everything that we're being sold and advertised to all the time, if you can scope view in to an inch by inch pixel, that means that everybody knows what brand of furniture I have on my back patio and what vehicle I drive. Then at what point does it become where people know not only your assessment of what you're worth, but everything that you purchase?
Yeah.
It's not so much of a taxable thing, but almost like what outside entities outside of the U.S., whether it be Russia or China or all these different things that are going on right now. Being in B County, that kind of concerns me a little bit, having the access to that.
Yeah, let me hit on a few things, because you kind of unpacked a few things there. So the first of which is, yeah, we don't outsource anything to any, so all the imagery is processed in the U.S. by our folks. We don't sell it to any international companies. The imagery that we propose is actually 6-inch resolution, so we're not proposing, getting down to the 1-inch level. But even if we did, so 1-inch imagery, and I've got examples I can show, but the 1-inch imagery, so you can make out a person's likeness in terms of, if you see someone on a sidewalk, you can maybe make out if they have a handbag and infer that maybe that's a female. You can't see a face, you can't read a license plate, you can't see inside a window. And those are typically the three things that, and in previous years, this was a while back, but attorney generals have made opinions on that in terms of privacy concerns. But with the imagery, so we don't share it with any international companies. What I would say, and this gentleman touched on, we have another side of the business that does sell the imagery, but not in the same manner. So we have a commercial side of the business that utilizes the imagery and sells to roofing contractors and insurance companies. But what they do is, I'm State Farm, for example, just hypothetically, and I'm going to underwrite a homeowner's policy on this property. So they would go to our website and enter in an address and pull what we call a roof report, which would give them images of the property, but also the dimensions of the roof, the material type, the different facets of the roof, everything they would need to know about a roof without having to send an adjuster out there to physically measure it. So we do utilize the imagery on the commercial side, but they're not accessing the imagery across the board the way that an appraisal district would. They say, I just need to know everything about this roof at this address and this address. And so it's very site specific. But all of that business is with insurance companies that are, my understanding is they're all U.S. based anyway, but there is no means where we would just provide this to anybody and everybody, whether in the U.S. or outside. It is a controlled licensed tool that's only available to those that purchase access to it.
So in your contract, that would state that outside entities would outside the U.S. I mean, does that do y'all have a research team that researches like the people that are making bids on insurance and all that kind of stuff with their sales, like sales reps that come out that will try to upsell because your neighbor put a $20,000 roof, but you put an $80,000 roof. You know what I mean? Like then there's difference in sales, and then who runs those entities? Are they based in the U.S. or do they have outside shareholders?
with access to that information?
I am not privy to all the information on the commercial side, but they are, they're roofing contractors and insurance companies that, yeah, I mean, they could have shareholders that I'm not familiar with. It's possible, but those shareholders don't have access to the imagery. They may have a report that shows them, here's an image of the roof or this property that you're underwriting, but they don't have a login to do measurements and see all the imagery like I've shown today. It's kind of a different use case on that side of the business. Great questions, though.
Is there anybody else in the audience that'd like to ask a question? Commissioners, do you have any further questions? Yes, sir.
What I'm hearing, let's say I own a large ranch, and I say, you're not coming on my ranch to look at my stuff, and I don't give you the combination. Right now, correct me if I'm wrong, your folks are having to go to Google and guesstimate on what's out there on that ranch. And this is going to give the opportunity to accurately assess whatever is out on that ranch, wherever it might be. Is that pretty much the way this is?
Yes, sir.
Because my guess is that happens more often than not.
It does. It does. It happens a lot. Yeah. And I guess to circle back on the Google point for a minute, so the two main things that I guess I would focus on in terms of comparing this to Google is, the oblique imagery being number one. So Google is typically just the top-down ortho shot. But also the frequency, the currency of it. So Google updates periodically when they want. They're not going to tell you when they're going to do it. They're also not going to stand behind the date that's on there. So for example, if the district attorney's office wanted to use an image in a trial and they called Google and said, hey, can you guarantee this image was on this date? They will not do that, whereas we will. So the difference are in terms of, do you need a verifiable source that has oblique imagery on a fixed recurring schedule, or do you want freely available? Not to say everything that on Google is bad, that's not what I'm saying, but there's a difference between the reason that Google has freely available imagery is to sell advertising. And that's a different focus than providing a tool for government use. So it's not exactly comparing apples to apples. And in fact, Google Earth, there are licensing restrictions against using that for government work. So that's another area.
And then a question, if you will, to the president, is this something that you feel will benefit your office?
Yes, this would be a terrific tool for the appraisal district to use. We do have a lot of properties like that we are guesstimating.
I meant to hand these out at the beginning. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Beers, for your presentation.
Thank you so much. I
Once
appreciate
again,
it.
thank you for being proactive and bringing this to
Thank
our
you guys for
attention.
your time. I know it took a lot of your time this morning. I appreciate it.
This isn't an action item. It's merely a presentation and discussion that we can talk offline. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the input from the guests here today. Really appreciate the insight and the comments. Moving on, agenda item number 22.1, approved salary committees, April 6, 2023, meeting updates.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to approve. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, gentlemen. Jennifer Reyna, Grant Administrator with Lee County, as well as Chair of the Salary Committee. And what I provided on the agenda was just an update for our last meeting on April 6th. That we are officially putting on the record that the position vacated by Ken Haggard is replaced by Commissioner Tino Olivares, as well as the position vacated by Derek Franco is replaced by Stacy Yanta. And the newly appointed Julie Aguirre didn't make any meetings, but she is being replaced by Michelle Bridge, our county clerk.
Okay, let me stop you right there. With respect to those three proposed replacements, Commissioner Stewart, do you have any questions, objections, anything like that?
I think you still have one vacancy.
That looks
Is that
like
correct?
That is the vacancy up there where it says empty. That is the position vacated by Julie Aguirre.
Okay, so
Okay.
Ms.
But
Bridge,
she
so
just-
you'll have a full
She
slate?
just wasn't at that meeting
Okay.
that we had.
I saw that vacancy.
Yes.
Okay, so it's full now.
It's full now. So
Okay.
she has graciously accepted, and she will be at the next meeting, I believe. And just that we are in the process of gathering data for assessment of the new recommendations for this fiscal year.
Okay, so if any of our department heads or elected officials have salary concepts, ideas, solutions, goals, dreams, wishes. Folks, be they realistic or unrealistic, please direct them to the salary committee, and thank you all.
You may
for the work that
email
you're
me,
doing.
and I will forward all of the information to our committee. Our next meeting will be this Wednesday, the 10th at noon.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions for the salary committee representatives? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes without exception. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Moving on, agenda item number 22, Hurricane Harvey, Texas General Land Office, GLO, Community Development Block Grant, CDBG status and project update. Commissioners Farias and Olivares, do you have any update for us?
Right now, the grant writer, Natalie Gonzalez, is actually getting all that in line to publish in the papers or to follow in suit. That's the next order of business, is to get it publicly addressed. And then she's going to leave a copy of that in the auditor's office for anybody if there's a question or to view, to be made available to the public. So that's where we are right now with the last. Other than that, the deadline is still May 22nd, and they propose to turn in the 4 projects. So we have one Tynan, Pettis, and the Silver Creek and 631 on that date.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions for Commissioner Farias?
Say it better.
Commissioner
You said it better.
Arena? Good. Hearing no questions, we can move on. Moving on to agenda item number 23, American Rescue Plan, ARP status and projects. Commissioners DeWitt, Lenny, Forces.
Yes, sir, we have some information to present to y'all for your perusal today. We have gone out and gotten the bids. The bids have come in now for the repeaters and the radios for the sheriff's department, or sheriff's office rather. And we need for the court to approve those. I think you asked for 13 repeaters and 7 radios, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
This has been ongoing for quite a bit of time. We have a problem in the county with communication. We looked at putting up additional radio towers. The expense was horrendous. The sheriff's office came up with the idea of putting mobile repeaters in the vehicles. We funded one a few years ago. It's worked out beautifully. Using this ARP money now, I think the total is going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Auditor, $287,951.60. And I would recommend to the court that we approve these bids and get them started on getting this stuff put in.
Thank you, Commissioner DeWitt. The second quote?
There's the radio, the repeaters were $234,472.68. The radios was $40,673.92. The installation was $12,805. Unless I hit the wrong button, it's
What's your total?
my total was $287,951.60. And we do have adequate funding and yes, sir.
If I can get a little latitude in that price, I was notified Friday, it may go up for one license, $850, $900.
If we made this $300,000 even, would that cover it?
Oh,
My recommendation in that way, if an extra radio may come out, my recommendation, Judge, is to approve $300,000 even for
Up to
$300,000. Yes, sir. Not to exceed $300,000.
Okay, is that in the form of a motion?
That is a motion, sir.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Second. I have a motion, multiple seconds, you can choose which one you like. Go ahead and tell me. Oh, wow, sorry. We have a motion and a second, any further discussion? I'm glad you got it, Tino. There's no further discussion. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes without exception. Floor is back to you, Commissioner DeWitt.
Yes, sir. We are going to be having a meeting before the next Commissioner Court meeting. Ms. Reddy, you might let them know what we're looking at now.
I do have some pending updates. Just give me a moment. So I have received an inquiry for the volunteer fire department. So we're going to take a look at that during our
Which one,
meeting.
then?
This is going to be for Skidmore.
Skidmore.
To update everyone, each volunteer fire department is granting $30,000
Correct.
to utilize, and they need to come back to this random how to utilize it. We've been having a little trouble getting the information back. So now we've got
And
another
Skidmore is one of the ones who has provided backup to what they spent their 30,000 allocation on. So that this will be a new project request that we come to committee with. As well as just some Pettis Mud wish list, dire need updates that they have as well. So we do have a lot to discuss at our meeting to see what we can use.
Skidmore War.
Skidmore War, I didn't get that one. So I didn't get that one. But yes, anything will just come to my email, Jennifer Reyna at bcountytexas.gov. And
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Any other questions? Any other presentations?
No. Commissioner Day?
We should be hearing from Mr. Mercer to come back and present report on the building and on the expo. At that time, he should have everything 100% complete, and it'll go out for bids.
So you're not supposed to do engineering, is that what it's gonna
He was, when we had that last meeting with him, he was hoping to possibly have it done by the 8th, but, yeah. Anyway,
Commissioner, what I heard from him last week, he's gonna bring them all. Everything he's got for be found. Generator, IT filled out, EOC, he's bringing them all.
Since y'all are working with him pretty closely, would y'all please make sure that he communicates directly with Candy or Dolores so that we make sure we have agenda items that will allow him to actually communicate? Since last time he came, we didn't have any agenda item for him to communicate on.
Well, this last time as well, the only communication I got was well after our cutoff for the agenda.
Yeah, so if y'all could just give Dolores, I'm just gonna have you or Candy, we'll just reach out to him, just so we make sure that we don't waste his time. Get him up here to make these presentations.
so if we have that, the ARP on the agenda,
Yeah, absolutely. But it doesn't
Yeah,
cover
but
the
not
courthouse
IT.
generator.
And
It
not
doesn't cover the generator or the IT.
Tax office.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a problem. Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. I think we ought to be sure that the Kurt and Harvey update, the ARP are on there.
We are, yeah, I've been on.
Good.
The other thing is, they talked about it a little bit, working people, he's over there wearing that. But he's at the expo, working with people, and we're going a little bit to discuss the projects.
Great. And we expect that the EOC building will go up as quickly as the Neo Industries building. So
That would be nice.
6-month construction turnaround, 4-month construction turnaround, turnkey.
He said
As soon as the steel hit the ground, I mean, those guys went to work.
That is amazing.
Mr. Mercer said that once we get the 30 days for bids, once we get the bid that we're going to accept, that it should be completed by next March.
Is the city going I want to ask that.
Thank you very much for those updates.
Ms. Ready, you have anything else?
No.
That's where we go.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for those updates and last agenda items. We have no executive session items today, and so we can move on, fast forward to agenda item number 24, adjournment. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion to, a reticent, a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Another reticent motion. Nobody wants to leave. All those in favor for leaving, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes without exception. Thank you all for your patience. You're in all of your input today. No, I'm gonna. I wanted it to be. I thought.